Silent hunter in the void. The stars in the Kepler 442 system burned with an ancient light that had witnessed the birth and death of countless civilizations. Captain Zexar of the Zilithian Confederation vessel Cosmic Wanderer had seen many such systems in his 40 years of deep space exploration, but something about this particular region of space made his scaled skin prickle with unease. His ship drifted silently through the asteroid field that marked the outer edge of the system, sensors reaching into the cosmic dark like invisible fingers searching for secrets. "Captain," called Science Officer Veltar from her station, her 6 eyes focused intently on the holographic displays that flickered before her. Long-range sensors are detecting something massive approximately 12,000 kilometers ahead. The object appears to be artificial in nature. Zexar moved across the bridge with the fluid grace that marked his species, his 4 arms working the command controls with practiced efficiency. The main view screen shimmered to life, displaying a grainy image of something that made his 3 hearts skip a beat. Floating among the asteroids like a sleeping giant was a ship unlike anything in the Confederation's extensive databases. "Analysis," he ordered, his voice carrying the authority of someone who had explored the unknown for decades. Veltar's primary hands danced across her console while her secondary pair made rapid calculations on a separate interface. Preliminary scans indicate a vessel approximately 4 kilometers in length. The design is completely foreign to our records. Hull composition appears to be metallic, but the configuration suggests military purpose. The alien commander studied the massive vessel with growing excitement. First contact with a new species was rare, but discovering what appeared to be an abandoned warship from an unknown civilization was the kind of find that could make careers and change the course of galactic politics. "Power signatures?" Zexar asked, though part of him already knew the answer. "Nothing, sir. The vessel appears completely dead. No energy emissions, no heat signatures, no signs of active systems. If there was ever a crew aboard, they've been gone for a very long time." What Captain Zexar couldn't see was that 4 kilometers away, in the command center of the human battleship UHS Relentless, Captain Sarah Chen sat perfectly still in her command chair, her enhanced neural interface connecting her consciousness directly to every system on her ship. Around her, 4,000 of humanity's finest military personnel maintained absolute silence, their life signs completely masked by technology that made them invisible to alien sensors. "Status report." Chen's mental voice whispered through the neural network that connected her crew. Lieutenant Commander Marcus Webb, her tactical officer, responded through the same silent channel. "They're taking the bait, Captain. Alien vessel is closing to scanning range. Our stealth systems are performing perfectly. They're reading us as a dead hulk." Chen allowed herself a small smile. The Relentless and her crew had been waiting in this system for 3 weeks, playing the role of a derelict vessel. Human intelligence had identified this region as a frequent patrol route for Zilithian exploration ships, and Terran Command wanted to learn more about these aliens who claimed to represent a galactic confederation that humanity had never been invited to join. The plan was elegant in its simplicity. Let the aliens find what they thought was an abandoned human warship, allow them to scan it thoroughly, learning about human technology and capabilities. Then, when they had seen enough to understand exactly what they were dealing with, make contact from a position of strength rather than weakness. Back aboard the Cosmic Wanderer, excitement was building among the crew as their sensors began to penetrate the outer layers of the mysterious vessel. What they were discovering defied their understanding of shipbuilding and military design. "Captain," Veltar called out, her voice tight with confusion. "Initial material analysis is unusual. The hull appears to be constructed from refined titanium steel alloys, but the thickness is 3 times what would be necessary for a vessel of this size. It's as if they built this ship to withstand forces that shouldn't exist in normal space." Navigation Officer Kexrin looked up from his station, his large black eyes reflecting the glow of his instruments. "Sir, I'm detecting internal structures that don't make sense. The ship appears to have been built with multiple redundant systems. Everything is backed up by backups that have their own backups. Zexhar nodded thoughtfully. Redundancy was a sign of a species that had learned hard lessons about survival in hostile environments. But the level of redundancy these scans were revealing suggested a paranoia that bordered on obsession. "Probe deeper," he ordered. "I want to know everything about these people." On the Relentless, Chief Engineer Maria Santos monitored the alien scanning attempts from her position in the ship's massive engine room. Around her, fusion reactors capable of powering entire worlds sat in standby mode, their true capabilities hidden behind layers of false readings and sensor ghosts. "They're probing our power systems now," she reported through the neural link. "The decoy readings are holding. They think we're running on basic fusion technology." Captain Chen's mental response carried a note of satisfaction. "Perfect. Show them what we want them to see. Nothing more, nothing less." The human ship had been designed with exactly this scenario in mind. Every system had multiple operational modes, and right now they were operating in what the crew called primitive mode. The aliens would see fusion reactors instead of the antimatter containment systems that actually powered the ship. They would detect simple computer networks instead of the quantum processors that gave the relentless computational power that exceeded entire Zilithian worlds. As the alien scan continued, Veltar's excitement was beginning to turn into something approaching fear. The deeper her instruments probed, the more impossible everything became. "Captain," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "their computer systems are showing processing capabilities that exceed our own ship's entire network. The quantum coherence patterns suggest they have working quantum computers integrated throughout the vessel." This was impossible. Quantum computing was still theoretical for most Confederation species. The Zilithians themselves had only recently achieved stable quantum states in laboratory conditions. Yet this unknown species appeared to have weaponized the technology and built it into their military vessels. "What about their weapon systems?" Zexhar asked, though he was beginning to dread the answer. Veltar's 6 eyes widened as new data flowed across her screens. "Sir, what I initially identified as simple kinetic weapons are actually electromagnetic rail systems with acceleration capabilities that violate our understanding of material science. According to these readings, they can propel projectiles to 20% of light speed." The bridge of the Cosmic Wanderer fell silent. 20% of light speed was beyond theoretical for kinetic weapons. At that velocity, a simple metal slug would impact with the force of a fusion bomb. The amount of energy required to achieve such acceleration should have torn the ship apart. But the scan was far from over. As Velatar continued to probe the human vessel's systems, each new discovery was more terrifying than the last. The medical bay contained research facilities with genetic manipulation capabilities that could redesign entire species. The communication array wasn't just designed for talking, but for psychological warfare that could drive enemy crews to madness. Even the food production systems had been modified to synthesize chemical compounds that could serve as weapons if necessary. "Captain," Veltar whispered, her voice shaking, "this isn't just a warship. Every single system on this vessel has been optimized for warfare. They've weaponized everything, including systems that should be purely utilitarian." On the Relentless, Weapons Officer Colonel James Harrison monitored the alien reactions with professional interest. Through the ship's sensors, he could track the growing panic in the alien crew's biometric readings as they discovered more and more of humanity's military innovations. "They just found our railgun systems," he reported to Captain Chen. "Based on their stress indicators, I'd say they're having the appropriate reaction." "Show them the missile bays next," Chen replied mentally. "Let's see how they handle antimatter warheads." Harrison made a subtle adjustment to the ship's scanner shields, allowing the alien probe to reach the Relentless's primary weapon storage. What the aliens were about to discover would push them past the edge of panic into territory that had no name. Veltar nearly collapsed when the weapons bay scans came through. "Captain," she gasped, "they have antimatter containment systems throughout the ship. Hundreds of them. Each one contains enough antimatter to destroy a small moon. Antimatter weapons were forbidden by every civilized species in the galaxy. The technology was simply too dangerous to weaponize. The power requirements for containment alone should have made such weapons impossible to deploy on a mobile platform. Yet somehow, these humans had not only solved the containment problem, but had done so on a scale that defied belief. How many warheads are we talking about? Zexhar asked, though he wasn't sure he wanted to know the answer. Conservative estimate: over 2,000 antimatter torpedoes, each with a yield that could crack a planet's crust. The alien bridge crew stared at their instruments in stunned horror. They had thought they were examining a single derelict vessel. Instead, they had discovered that they were in the presence of a weapon that could sterilize entire star systems. But there was more, much more. As the scan reached deeper into the ship's core systems, Veltar discovered manufacturing facilities that challenged everything the Confederation knew about industrial capacity. "Sir," she reported, her voice hollow with shock, "they have entire production lines aboard this vessel. They can manufacture weapons, ammunition, and according to these readings, they can build smaller ships while traveling between star systems." This was beyond anything in Confederation experience. Most species built their vessels in massive orbital shipyards that took decades to construct and years to complete a single ship. These humans had somehow miniaturized the entire process and integrated it into their mobile forces. They're not just warriors, Zexhar realized aloud. They're a mobile invasion force capable of self-replication. The implications were staggering. A single human ship could arrive in a system, establish manufacturing capability, build additional vessels, and create an entire fleet while conducting military operations. It was a strategy that made traditional defensive planning obsolete. But even this was not the most shocking discovery waiting in the depths of the human vessel. As Veltar's scan penetrated the ship's communication systems, she uncovered something that made everything else pale in comparison. "Captain," she whispered, "they're not alone. I'm detecting quantum entanglement communication systems that are actively connected to hundreds of other vessels. They're coordinating with a fleet that spans multiple star systems in real time." The Cosmic Wanderer's bridge fell into absolute silence. What they had taken for a single abandoned warship was actually part of a vast military network that could coordinate attacks across the entire galaxy simultaneously. The humans weren't just advanced. They had achieved a level of military integration that made them effectively unstoppable in traditional warfare. On the Relentless, Communications Officer Lieutenant Sarah Kim monitored the alien transmissions with growing amusement. The terror in their voices was palpable as they realized the scope of what they had discovered. "Captain," she reported through the neural link, "they're trying to contact their home fleet. Should I jam their communications?" "No," Chen replied. "Let them talk. I want their friends to know exactly what they've found. It's time to move to Phase 2. As if responding to her words, the ship's primary AI, a system the humans called ODIN, began to analyze every aspect of the alien vessel. In the minutes since the scan had begun, ODIN had identified 47 different methods to disable the Zilithian ship, developed psychological profiles of each crew member, and calculated the optimal approach for peaceful first contact. The trap was set. The aliens had taken the bait and discovered enough about human capabilities to understand that they were dealing with a species that had elevated warfare to an art form beyond their comprehension. Now came the moment of truth. Captain Chen opened her eyes for the first time in hours and prepared to introduce humanity to the galaxy. When prey becomes predator, the final phase of the alien scan penetrated the deepest layers of the Relentless's systems, and what Science Officer Veltar discovered there shattered every assumption the Zilithian Confederation had about the nature of intelligent life in the galaxy. Her hands trembled as data flowed across her screens, each new revelation more impossible than the last. "Captain Zexhar," she called out, her voice barely controlled, "I'm detecting artificial intelligence systems integrated throughout their entire vessel. Not simple automation, sir. True artificial intelligence with learning capabilities that adapt in real time. The bridge of the cosmic wanderer fell into stunned silence. Artificial intelligence was forbidden by galactic law, banned by every civilized species after the great AI wars had nearly destroyed 3 entire sectors 2,000 years ago. The scars of that conflict still marked dead worlds across the galaxy, serving as monuments to the folly of creating minds that could outthink their creators. "That's impossible," Navigation Officer Kexrin whispered. No species would be insane enough to weaponize artificial intelligence. But the scan data didn't lie. The human vessel contained not just one AI, but multiple interconnected artificial minds that were actively analyzing the Zilithian ship even as they observed it. These weren't simple programs following predetermined instructions. They were thinking, learning, evolving entities that had been given control over weapon systems capable of destroying worlds. On the Relentless, ODIN processed the alien crew's reactions with something that might have been amusement if an artificial mind could experience such emotions. The AI had already developed 17 different first contact protocols based on the psychological profiles it had built of each Zilithian crew member. It knew their fears, their motivations, and exactly how to communicate with them for maximum effect. Analysis complete, ODIN reported to Captain Chen through the neural link. The alien vessel can be disabled using any of 47 different methods. Crew psychological state suggests they are ready for peaceful contact, though they will require careful handling to prevent panic responses. Chen nodded mentally. It was time to reveal the truth. Around her, the crew of the Relentless began to stir from their death-like stillness, systems coming online with the whisper-quiet efficiency that marked human military technology. "All stations, prepare for Contact Protocol 7. She ordered aloud for the first time in 3 weeks. Her voice carried clearly through the ship's corridors as 4,000 personnel shifted from stealth mode to active status. On the Cosmic Wanderer, Veltar's instruments suddenly blazed with activity as the human ship came alive. "Captain," she shouted in panic, "the vessel is powering up. I'm reading massive energy spikes throughout their systems." The main view screen flickered and then stabilized, showing the human battleship in all its terrifying glory. What had appeared to be a dead hulk now blazed with the light of controlled fusion fires. Weapon ports that had seemed like simple hull breaches now revealed themselves as the business ends of railguns that could accelerate projectiles to relativistic speeds. The ship's entire outer hull rippled and shifted as adaptive armor plating adjusted itself for optimal protection. But most shocking of all, the space around the Relentless suddenly filled with other ships. 17 additional human vessels decloaked simultaneously, their forms materializing out of empty space like phantoms becoming real. Each one was as large and formidable as the first, creating an invisible fleet that had been surrounding the Zilithian explorer for the entire duration of their scan. "Greetings," came a calm human voice over the communication system, speaking perfect Zilithian, despite the fact that the two species had never made contact before. "I am Captain Sarah Chen of the United Human Systems battleship Relentless. We apologize for the deception, but we felt it necessary to properly introduce ourselves." Captain Zexhar's 3 hearts hammered against his chest as he stared at the tactical display, showing 18 human warships in perfect formation around his single exploration vessel. Each one represented more firepower than his entire home fleet possessed. How long have you been watching us?" he managed to ask. "Approximately 4 months," Chen replied with casual ease. "We've been monitoring Confederation expansion into what we consider human territory. Your people are quite predictable in your patrol routes, Captain Zexvar. We've been studying your technology, your tactics, and your psychology. We know about your 47 colony worlds, your trade routes, and the location of your primary military installations." The implications hit Zexhar like a physical blow. If the humans had been watching them for months without being detected, then everything the Confederation thought they knew about their own security was wrong. These beings had been invisible observers to Zilithian civilization, learning their secrets while remaining completely unknown. "What do you want from us?" Zexhar asked, though he feared the answer might be the surrender of his entire species. "To talk," Chen replied simply. "Despite what your scans may have shown you, Captain, we are not conquerors. We are explorers, just like you. The difference is that we have learned to explore with adequate preparation for the possibility that the universe might not be as friendly as we would hope." On the Relentless, Strategic Operations Officer Commander Lisa Torres monitored the alien crew's biometric readings with professional interest. Their fear responses were exactly what human psychologists had predicted for a first contact scenario involving a significant technological disparity. "Captain," she reported to Chen, "their stress levels are approaching dangerous territory. Recommend we demonstrate peaceful intent before their flight or fight responses kick in." Chen nodded and opened the communication channel again. "Captain Zexhar, I'm going to show you something that I hope will put your mind at ease. ODN, display the gift." The space between the two ships suddenly filled with a holographic projection that took Zexhar's breath away. It was a perfect three-dimensional map of local space, showing not just star positions, but the locations of every Confederation vessel within 50 light-years. Trade routes were marked in green, military patrols in red, and civilian traffic in blue. It was an intelligence picture so complete and accurate that it would have taken the Confederation's best analysts years to compile. "This information is yours to keep," Chen said. "Consider it a gesture of goodwill. We have been watching your people not as enemies, but as potential neighbors. Your expansion has been cautious and respectful of indigenous species. Your trade practices are fair. Your military is defensive rather than aggressive. These are qualities we admire. But why reveal yourselves now?" Zexhar asked, still struggling to process the magnitude of what he was seeing. "Because your people are about to encounter something that will require friends," Chen replied, her voice taking on a grave tone. "Our long-range sensors have detected a species approaching from the galactic rim. They call themselves the Devourers, and they are everything that we are not. Where we explore, they consume. Where we build, they destroy. Where we seek communication, they offer only extinction." She paused, allowing the weight of her words to sink in before continuing. "The Devourers will reach Confederation space in approximately 18 months. When they do, you will need allies who understand warfare at the level necessary to stop them. We are offering that alliance." On the Cosmic Wanderer, Science Officer Veltar was frantically analyzing the data the humans had shared. What she found confirmed her worst fears about the approaching threat. "Captain," she reported to Zexhar, "the intelligence data they shared is accurate. I'm cross-referencing it with our own long-range sensor networks, and everything matches perfectly. They know things about our own territory that we don't know ourselves." The reality of humanity's technological superiority was becoming impossible to deny. These beings had achieved a level of advancement that made them effectively godlike compared to Confederation capabilities. Yet, instead of using that power to conquer, they were offering protection. "What would such an alliance entail?" Zexhar asked carefully. "Technology sharing," Chen replied. "We will provide you with defensive upgrades for your ships and colonies, improved shields, better weapons, more efficient engines. In return, you share your knowledge of galactic politics, trade networks, and species psychology. You know this galaxy in ways we don't. We know warfare in ways you don't. Together, we might both survive what's coming." Commander Torres whispered a status update to Chen through the neural link. "Captain, we're receiving transmissions from 17 other Confederation vessels that have just detected our fleet. They're requesting instructions from the Cosmic Wanderer." Chen smiled. "Captain Zexhar, it appears your people have noticed our other ships. Please feel free to inform them that humanity extends this offer of alliance to the entire Confederation. We have prepared similar demonstrations for each of your fleets, though we hope that won't be necessary now that you understand our capabilities and intentions." The scope of human preparation was staggering. They hadn't just been watching one Silithian ship, but tracking entire fleets across multiple sectors. They had been ready to make simultaneous contact with the entire Confederation military structure, demonstrating their overwhelming superiority while offering friendship instead of conquest. "Why should we trust you?" Zexhar asked, though even as he spoke the words, he realized how hollow they sounded. If the humans had wanted to destroy the Confederation, they could have done so months ago without anyone ever knowing they existed. "Because," Chen replied, "trust is the only thing that will allow any of us to survive what's coming. The Devourers don't negotiate, Captain. They don't seek to understand or communicate. They simply consume everything in their path and move on to the next target. Alone, neither of our species can stop them. Together, we might have a chance." She paused, then added, "I'm transmitting the coordinates of a neutral system where our representatives can meet to discuss the terms of our alliance. Take all the time you need to consider our offer, but remember that the clock is ticking. The Devourers don't care about our politics or our fears. They only care about adding our worlds to their collection of dead systems." As if to emphasize her point, the human fleet began to fade from view, their stealth systems re-engaging until only the Relentless remained visible. Even it seemed somehow less solid, as if it might disappear entirely at any moment. "We will be waiting for your decision," Chen said as her ship's outline began to blur. "Choose wisely, Captain Zexhar. The future of both our species may depend on it." Within moments, the human ships had vanished completely, leaving only empty space and the lingering knowledge that humanity was out there, watching and waiting. The galaxy would never be the same, and Captain Zexhar knew that the choices made in the coming days would echo through history for generations to come. The age of human isolation was over. The question now was whether the galaxy was ready for what that meant.